Hello, Bachu. Welcome back to Dakshina Classroom channel. My name is Somil Pratap and I am teaching you inorganic chemistry. Or in last lecture, we did about hydrogen and its compounds, and we'll continue that lecture and start. We ended with the identification of H2O2 and the properties of H2O2. Now we'll study some properties of H2O2 again, and then we'll continue forward, right? So today's lecture, properties of H2O2, we'll study about the properties of H2O2. Now, in properties of H2O2, what we have is we have H2O2, and you see H2O2 is present. When H2O2 is present, H2O2 dissociates into and gives into H plus, right? So it is biacidic, right? So it gives 2H plus, right? It gives 2H plus, and therefore we can say that this is biperoxide, and therefore it gives 2H plus, right? So this is how it dissociates. H2O2 dissociates into H plus and HO2 minus, and then HO2 minus dissociates into H plus and O2 minus, right? The first reaction will give you Ka1 and the second reaction will give you Ka2, right? Now it acts as an oxidizing agent. H2O2 can act as an oxidizing agent both in acidic and basic medium. How it acts as an oxidizing agent? For H2O2 to act as an oxidizing agent, it should reduce itself. What it should do? It should reduce itself, right? So it should reduce itself. What happens here is H2O2 reduces itself to H2O. Now consider here that oxygen is in O2 2 minus oxidation state, and it reduces itself to O2 minus, right? Which means from -1 on one oxygen, it is getting to O2 minus on one oxygen, which means it is reducing itself, right? It is reducing itself. So when it is reducing itself, it will oxidize something else or some other compound, right? So in the process, the H2O2 has oxidizing ability where it reduces itself and oxidizes other compounds. The secondly, it can also act as an reducing agent. It can also act as an reducing agent where it reduces itself, where it oxidizes itself and reduces others. For example, H2O2, where O2 2 minus is present, it can convert into O2. Now see, oxygen from O2 to 2, it has oxidized itself, right? It has oxidized itself, and when it has oxidized itself, it will reduce other compounds. It will reduce other compounds. So it has both the properties, oxidizing as well as reducing in acidic as well as basic medium. Okay, now we'll do something about hydrides. Hydrides के बारे में. We'll study about hydrides. What are hydrides? Now, when a metal reacts with hydrogen, it forms a metal hydride. Now consider this. Metals are more electropositive. So if metals are more electropositive, they will have more positive charge, which means if Na reacts with H2, it will have tendency to form sodium. What is the tendency of a metal? To oxidize itself. What is the tendency of metal? To oxidize itself. And in doing so, it will reduce something or the other. Now here, Na is oxidizing itself. It will oxidize itself and it gets converted into Na plus, and it will reduce something other. What is something other? H2, right? And it reduces H2 to give you H minus. It reduces H2 to give you H minus, and they form a compound called NaH, and this is known as hydride. This is known as hydride. What kind of hydride? Metal hydride. Which is a kind of hydride? Metal hydride. So in hydrides, the hydrogen is in negative oxidation state, whereas the metals are in positive oxidation state. Now hydrides can be divided into three parts. One is ionic hydride that we just talked about, wherein the metal is in plus oxidation state and hydrogen is in -1 oxidation state, right? Now, this kind of ionic salts will be formed by the alkali metals and alkali earth metals. This can only be formed by alkali metals and alkali earth metals because they are more electropositive. So they will have the tendency to lose an electron and reduce hydrogen and oxidize themselves. So this kind of ionic salts can only be formed by alkali metals and alkali earth metals like NaH, MgH2, LiH, CaH2. Right? Then there are covalent hydrides. Covalent hydrides as in where the metal or the cation is less metallic. For example, aluminium. It is less metallic as compared to sodium, magnesium. For example, beryllium. It is less metallic as compared to lithium. Right? So whenever a hydride is formed by less metallic cation, those those hydrides will be called as covalent hydrides. Those hydrides will be called as covalent hydrides. Or you can say in this way, you have studied Fajan's rule, right? You have studied Fajan's rule. In Fajan's rule, if the metal has more charge, or less size, it has tendency to polarize. More charge or less size, it has tendency to polarize. And if it has tendency to polarize, it forms covalent character. Right? So I can easily say this, that if a metal has more charge or is less in size or smaller in size, then it has more tendency to polarize, and that polarization will lead to covalent character. Now consider this. Aluminium has +3 oxidation state, which means it has a huge amount of positive charge. And if it has a huge amount of positive charge, it can easily polarize hydrogen, and therefore it can easily create a covalent character between them, and therefore this is known as covalent hydride. Whereas in case of beryllium, it is smaller in size, and because of its small size, it can again easily polarize hydrogen and therefore create a covalent character. So these compounds are known as covalent hydrides. And then there comes interstitial hydrides. What are interstitial hydrides? First, understand what are interstitial compounds. If you take a cotton and dip it in water, you'll see that here the water molecules get attached to cotton. Now, will you say that these two things have reacted? No. In between cotton, there are spaces where the water molecules sit. Similarly, when a metal is arranged, there are voids. And if in those voids, hydrogen sits, or any other non-metal sits, then that complex will be known as interstitial compound. Then that metal complex will be known as interstitial compounds. What I'm trying to say here is, if a non-metal sits in the voids created by the metals. For example, if you see, this is a metal, right? If I take this as a metal, right? There are voids in between them. If in these voids or in these gaps, if a non-metal sits, is that non-metal reacting with the compound? No, it is just sitting there. Similar to what? Similar to a cotton being dipped in water. The cotton being dipped in water, you'll see that the water will be present in the gaps or in the voids of the cotton. So what will happen there? What is happening there? It is not reacting. It is just simultaneously, symbiotically sitting there. Right? It is symbiotically or simultaneously sitting there. It is not a reaction. It is just a arrangement where two different molecules are sitting together. Right? Similarly, if in a metallic compound, a non-metal goes and sits in a void similar to these red spaces, then that non-metal is not reacting with the metal. It is just sitting in those voids. And if it is just sitting in those voids, those kind of compounds are known as interstitial compounds. Now, if those kind of compounds are known as interstitial compounds, what are interstitial hydrides? The sitting, if we talked about the non-metal sitting there, if we replace that non-metal with a hydride, then it will be known as interstitial hydride. So this red, if it is replaced by a hydride, then it is known as interstitial hydride. Now, in transition metals, the transition metals will create a lot of gaps between them. And because of those gaps, the hydrogen will sit in between those voids. Right? And therefore, they will form interstitial hydrides. Now, these interstitial hydrides are non-stoichiometric because it is not a reaction. There is no possibility that they will be in the similar ratio 1:2, 1:3, 1:4 because it is not a reaction. It is just that the number of voids and also the number of hydrogen we have. So these are usually non-stoichiometric. Which means at different ratios and different formulas, right? So what are interstitial hydrides? When in a transition metal complex, hydrides sit in the voids created by those compounds are known as interstitial hydrides. And these interstitial hydrides are non-stoichiometric. These interstitial hydrides are non-stoichiometric, right? This part is clear. So you have studied about the hydrides. There are three types of hydrides. Those are ionic hydrides, which is formed by alkali metals and alkali earth metals. Then there are covalent hydrides, which are formed by usually those metals which can polarize the hydrogen H minus. And then there are interstitial hydrides, wherein the hydride sits in between the voids, right? Okay, now let's continue forward. And now the next topic is hard and soft water, and this is the most important topic of this chapter. Why? Because there is a definite possibility that this question might come in your exams. Simple topic, but very important. Why? Because the probability of this question, we talk about psi square, the probability of finding electron, the probability of finding this question will be more. The probability of finding this question will be more in the examination, right? So let's start with this topic. Now, H2. H2, your water can be divided into two types of water. That is hard water and soft water. Why this? Because of the interaction with the soap. Water interacts with the soap differently. Hard water, what happens with hard water? When hard water interacts with the soap, it does not form lather. What is lather? हिंदी में झाग, right? What is lather? हिंदी में झाग, ठीक है? So soap जब आप डालोगे पानी में, so if it is not forming that झाग or lather, then it is a kind of hard water. And if it forms a lather, then it is soft water. If it forms a lather, then it is soft water. So what I'm trying to say here is that H2O, water, interaction with the soap determines if it is hard water or soft water, right? If it forms a lather, then it is soft water, and if it does not form a lather, then it is hard water, right? Now, before going forward, let's see what a soap is all about. The soap has two parts. This is a formula. It is sodium salt of fatty acid, right? And this is kind of formula that we have, wherein there is an inorganic part that is hydrophilic, which means it dissolves in water, it loves water. So there is an inorganic part, or you can say ionic part, and then there is organic part, which is hydrophobic, right? This part is hydrophobic. So there are two types of parts in a soap. The two parts are one hydrophobic part, that is the organic part, the other the hydrophilic part, that is the inorganic part, right? So sometimes it is written in this way, you can create this way. So what happens when soap is kept in hard water? What happens here is the hard soap reacts with these metals, right? Reacts with these metals, and these metals create the hardness. These metals salt create the hard water. These metal salt create the hard water. Okay, these metal salt create the hard water. Which metal salt? Ca2 plus and Mg2 plus. So hot water is created by Ca2 plus and Mg2 plus salts. So when these metal salts react with the soap, what they do is they replace sodium, and when they replace sodium, they create a PPT with the soap or with the anion, and this PPT is separated out, and therefore no lather can be formed. So what happens is with the soap, they react, these metals react, Ca2 plus and Mg2 plus, and create a white PPT which is separated out, and no lather formation is done. Whereas in this case, in soft water case, what happens here is it does not react with the soap. So the other ions do not react with the soap, and therefore there is no reaction, no PPT, and if there is no PPT, the lather will be produced. So what happens is hard water is caused by Ca2 plus and Mg2 plus salts, right? And this Ca2 plus and Mg2 plus salts, what they do is they react with the soap and produce white PPT. And that white PPT is separated out. Whereas other ions do not react with the soap, and therefore they produce that soap is easily able to produce the lather. The importance here is that the soap is very important for producing the lather, and if you separate the soap out from the solution, you won't be able to produce the lather. So what is important is the soap should be present in the solution. Now in the first case, you're removing the soap by reacting it with the calcium and magnesium. So you won't be able to produce the lather. Whereas in second case, in the soft water case, the soap is present in the solution, and therefore the lather formation is possible. Understood, but understood? Okay. So this is how a soap reacts with the greasy part, right? What it does is its organic part reacts with the greasy part, it gets attached, and then the separation takes place. So this is called colloidal, and these are called micelles. These are called micelles, right? So this is not much important for you, right? But you should know that the organic part reacts with the dirt and the grease, and then the removal takes place. Now, types of hardness. Types of hardness. There are two types of hardness. One is temporary hardness and one is permanent hardness. Hardness is caused by, right now I taught you, Mg2 plus and Ca2 plus. These two create hardness of water, hard water, right? And in this, hardness can be divided into two parts. One is temporary, one is permanent. Temporary hardness is because of calcium bicarbonate and magnesium bicarbonate, which means because of this ion, temporary hardness is there, right? And because of rest of the other ions, permanent hardness is there. The common factor is this is still there. This is because of this. The hardness is because of this. Temporary and permanent is because of the anions. Temporary and permanent is because of the anions, right? Now, we'll try to remove the hardness of the water. Now, first we'll remove it from the temporary hardness. First we'll try to remove the temporary hardness. Now, the removal of the hardness is known as softening process. The removal of the hardness is known as softening process. Let's talk about it. Temporary hardness. What is temporary hardness? You might have studied or you might have seen that when you heat water or when you boil water, there are white particles on it, on the surface of it or on the walls of it, right? That is because of the bicarbonates. And that is known as temporary hardness. The name itself says temporary hardness means which is easy to remove, which is wherein you use physical methods and the temporary hardness is removed. So temporary hardness is removed by simple boiling. What you do is you remove temporary hardness, you heat the bicarbonate, and when bicarbonate is heated, it gets converted into carbonate plus carbon dioxide plus H2O. And this carbonate forms a precipitate. And this carbonate is that white precipitate that you see when you boil water. So water when heated gives you white precipitate is because of the carbonate. And if it is precipitated out, which means you have separated calcium, and if you have separated calcium, which means the water is removed of hardness. This part is clear. So what is physical process? Physical process, you do heating. When you heat, the bicarbonates get decomposed into carbonate, and carbonate forms a white PPT, and that is removed easily. This part is understood. So you're removing calcium from it. And when you remove calcium from it, you remove the hardness, because the hardness is created by calcium and magnesium. Secondly, chemical process. Chemical process is bicarbonate treated with slake lime, CaOH whole twice, Ca calcium hydroxide. Now what will happen here is these two will react. Now consider these two. This is a base. CaOH whole twice is a base, whereas HCO3 minus is an acid because of the H present, right? So H2CO3 is an acid, so HCO3 will be an acid. So what will happen is this base will react with this acid, and therefore it will form a salt, and the salt is calcium carbonate. So this acid reacts with this base and forms a salt, calcium carbonate, and together they form water also. Now this calcium carbonate forms a precipitate that we studied in the first reaction only, that this calcium carbonate is a precipitate and it is removed by heating. So here also it is forming a precipitate, and the precipitate can be filtered out, and you can remove that calcium precipitate and you get a clear water. So there are two methods for removing temporary hardness. First, the temporary hardness is caused by bicarbonates. Now the first method is physical boiling. When you boil, you get white kind of precipitate of carbonate, and that carbonate can be filtered out, and you can easily get the normal soft water. Or what you can do is chemical process. You react with slake lime. The slake lime reacts with bicarbonate and forms a calcium carbonate again, which forms a precipitate, and then you can separate it out and filter it out, right? Okay, so this is all about what? Temporary method, temporary hardness. Now we'll talk about the softening process of permanent hardness. Now permanent hardness does not have a physical process. Why? Because it is permanent hardness. It cannot be removed by easy methods, and therefore it does not have a physical method, right? Then you have a chemical process. And there are 4 chemical processes: washing soda process or soda process, zeolite process, right? Resin method and Calgon method. We'll talk about each one of them. Okay, then let's start. Soda process. What is soda process? Soda process is you react the salts of calcium, magnesium with sodium carbonate. What will happen? Displacement of reaction takes place. It will remove sodium from it and react to form calcium carbonate. And this calcium carbonate, what will it do? It will form a precipitate that we studied earlier. And the precipitate can be separated out and you can get easily a soft water. Why I'm telling you again and again we get easily soft water? Understand this fact, because we are removing calcium, and if the calcium is removed, then you won't have any hardness even if you have different anions or anions, right? So major thing is you're removing the main source of hardness, and that is calcium and magnesium. By how? By precipitating them out. And if you precipitate them out and filter them out, you can easily get soft water, right? Second method, by zeolite. What are zeolite? First understand. These are sodium aluminosilicates. These are compounds of sodium, aluminum, and silicon, right? And these are sodium aluminosilicates. So this is the formula. You don't have to remember the formula. You just need to know what are zeolites, right? These are the formula, right? Now what will you do? See, you will consider this part as together. You won't be considering it as different. You will consider it as together, right? So this part, this part which I am covering it with bracket with green, this part is considered together and we consider it as Z. We consider it to be Z. Right? Now this sodium aluminosilicate reacts with calcium or magnesium to forms a compound. Now this compound that is formed, you are just replacing sodium with the metals. Now here also you was replacing sodium with calcium. Here also you was replacing sodium with calcium and magnesium. Again, replacement, displacement, nothing else. Now, this again forms a precipitate, and if again it forms a precipitate, we can filter it out and we can remove calcium and magnesium, and we can remove the source of hardness of water by removing calcium and magnesium. This part is clear? So this is how we remove hardness by zeolite process, wherein we take a sodium aluminosilicate similar to what we took here. We took a salt here. It is also a kind of salt. Now, what it will do, it will replace sodium by calcium, and that will form a precipitate, and that precipitate can be removed and the hardness can be removed thereby. Understood this part? Next, the resin method. Now, first you need to understand what are resins. These are 2 types of compounds, acidic resin and basic resin, right? Acidic resin which is acidic H, basic resin which is OH. Right? Now what will happen? See here. What will happen here? When you pour hard water from above, the acidic resin will react with the hard water. Right? When you pour hard water from above, the acidic resin will react. Right? Now what will happen when consider hard water has calcium chloride. So if you pour hard water from above, it has calcium chloride. Calcium chloride reacts with HR. Calcium chloride, it reacts with HR, which is acidic resin. So it reacts with HR and displacement will take place. And if displacement takes place, it forms HCl. And CaR2. The CaR2 forms a precipitate. And what happens to the precipitate? We create a filter out here. That filter stops the solid particles and let goes the liquid, like a semi-permeable membrane, right? It stops the solid particles, it keeps the solid particles and let goes of the liquid particles, the liquid molecules, the liquids, right? So what happens here is that in this filter, what will happen? The solid particle, that is CaR2, will remain, and the rest of the liquid will filter out, and the rest of the liquid contains HCl and the water that we have poured in, right? Now this is CaR2 should definitely form a precipitate. If it is not forming a precipitate, then it will not filter out, right? First and the foremost thing. Secondly, CaR2 is a precipitate, and the color can be different, so you don't need to consider the color, right? Now when the filters out, your CaR2 is here, somewhere here in the filter, but the water that is filtered out is acidic now. is acidic now because it has HCl. So you need to remove that acidic nature. So what you do, you react it with base. Reacted with base. The acid reacts with base, forms a salt, and the salt again precipitates here in this filter. The salt again precipitates in this filter, right? And the water that you get is devoid of the acidic or the basic medium. This is devoid of the acidic or the basic medium. Similar thing can happen when you reverse it out. What? If you want to reverse it out, you can do here basic resin and add here acidic resin. Similar thing will happen. What will it do? It will form a precipitate, calcium precipitate here, and then the solution will become basic, and then you add acidic resin, and then again water. You will get a clear water. So what I'm trying to say here is, when you pour hard water from above, that hard water reacts with the acidic resin, and when it reacts with acidic resin, what will happen? It forms a precipitate. With the calcium. With the calcium, it forms a precipitate. And when it forms the precipitate with the calcium, that precipitate is stuck here in this filtrate. Like a semi-permeable membrane, it let goes of the liquids and the solid particles remain on this filtrate. And with the water, HCl is also there. But what happens here is this solution becomes acidic. The water becomes acidic. So remove the acidic nature, we add basic resin. And the basic resin, what it does is, it reacts with HCl and forms R-Cl plus H2. And that R-Cl is also a precipitate. This part is clear. Right? This part is clear. We can do it for the reverse one also. Consider this. I'll take a reverse one also. Right? I'll take a blue basic resin. Right? This is a basic resin. Right? And then I have a filter. I'll create a filter like this. Right? Then I take an acidic resin here. And then I have a filter. Right? And I'm pouring water from above. Consider hard water being poured from above. Right? So this is, the above one is basic. And the below one is acidic. Now what will be the reaction? Basic, I had ROH. Right? This is basic hydroxide. This is basic resin. Now this basic resin, when I pour hard water from above, what will happen? It will react with CaCl2, because I consider CaCl2 as the main cause of hardness. So you can use CaCl2, you can use any other compound. Right? It reacts with this. It forms CaR2. It forms CaR2 plus. It forms CaCl2, CaOH. It forms CaOH whole twice. Replacement, displacement. What will happen? Ca will go this, R will come here. So the displacement, and it forms RCl2. Now the RCl2 will be precipitate, and therefore it will get stuck in these filters. This will get stuck in these filters. Right? This will happen. Now next. Now when the water comes down, it will have H2O here. Together, it will also have calcium hydroxide, which means the solution will become basic. Now this calcium hydroxide, what will do? This calcium hydroxide will react with the acidic resin, that is HR, and it will form CaR2 as the precipitate, and together it will form H2O. So H2O is devoid of calcium hydroxide by precipitate now. So that precipitate will get stuck here, and you'll get clear water. Without of any acidic nature or any basic nature. Right? So you can do vice versa also. You can use acidic resin first and basic resin first. You can use basic resin first and acidic resin later. That is not a case, but you should remember it, that what happens in an acidic resin and a basic resin. Right? Next you have Calgon method. What happens in Calgon method? Calgon method, again, you take sodium metaphosphate, and we've studied this in chemical bonding. Right? Sodium metaphosphate, where we said that this phosphate will form a cyclic structure. Right? Now this, again, sodium metaphosphate reacts with calcium and magnesium, and this magnesium or calcium replaces the sodium and forms a precipitate with it, releasing Na+. Again, you remove calcium and magnesium by precipitating it out. So this is how you remove calcium and magnesium. You precipitate it out, and what you create? You create a solution which is devoid of calcium and magnesium. right? So what we studied today, we'll just revise it out. First thing we studied about the properties of H2O2, wherein we said we have two acidic H in H2O2. Secondly, we talked about the oxidizing nature. The oxidizing nature of H2O2, how it gets reduced to H2O, which means O2 minus, it gets reduced to O2 minus and oxidizes something else. Then we talked about the reducing nature, where H2O2 oxidizes itself to get converted into O2 and reduces something, some other compound, right? Then we talked about the hydrides. What are the hydrides? When a metal reacts with hydrogen, it forms hydrides. Now there are three types of hydrides. Ionic salt hydride, wherein like alkali metal and alkali earth metal. Covalent hydrides, like the hydride formed by aluminium and beryllium, because they have high polarization energy, they will polarize H minus and create covalent character. And then you have interstitial hydrides, wherein the hydride will shift in the voids created by the metals, right? Then we studied about the hard water and soft water. Water of two types, hard water and soft water. Hard water is hard water. It does not create lather, whereas soft water creates lather. What are the uses, right? What soft water, any other ions are present, but in hard water, calcium and magnesium are present, right? What calcium and magnesium do? They react with the soap and they precipitate out soap. So if they are precipitating out soap, then there will be no lather formation. So reacting with the soap and precipitating out soap, no lather formation. Therefore, they are bad. So therefore, we try to remove hardness of the water. Now, types of hardness. Two types of hardness. See, hardness is because of calcium and magnesium, but after hardness, there are two types of hardness. One, temporary, created by the bicarbonates of the calcium and magnesium, and permanent, created by the calcium chlorides, sulfates, and other anions of the calcium and magnesium. How do you remove it? The removing process is known as softening process. Temporary hardness, how do you remove temporary hardness? One, physical method. When you boil it, you get the precipitate. That precipitate is because bicarbonate decomposes into carbonate. And that carbonate forms a precipitate, and that precipitate can be filtered out, and therefore you get a soft water. Secondly, the second method is chemical process, wherein, or also known as Clark's process. This is important. Why? Because sometimes this is asked. Now, the bicarbonate reacts with calcium hydroxide, wherein the calcium carbonate is created. Again, the precipitate is formed, and that precipitate will be removed. Secondly, the softening of permanent hardness. Now, there is no physical method for permanent hardness, but there are chemical methods. There are 4 chemical methods: the soda process or the washing soda process, the zeolite process, then you have the resin process, and then you have the Calgon process. What is soda process? You use sodium carbonate and reacted with calcium and magnesium. Calcium and magnesium react with sodium carbonate to form a precipitate of calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate. That precipitate can be removed. Secondly, you use zeolites. Now, zeolites, what they do, similar to what they did in soda process, it is kind of a salt which replaces, from which sodium is replaced by calcium and magnesium, and that forms a precipitate, and that can also be removed. Then you have resin method, where you're using HR, acidic resin, and basic resin. Now, what does acidic resin do? Acidic resin reacts with the salt of calcium and forms acid and the precipitate. The precipitate is stopped in the filter, and the acid with the H2O is filtered out. Now this solution it becomes acidic, so we reacted with the base, and the base, when it reacts with acid, gives you a salt of RCl and the clear water. So the acid is also removed, right? And the last method is Calgon method, where you use sodium metaphosphate salts, wherein the similar thing happens. The calcium or magnesium replaces sodium and forms a solid or a precipitate, which is removed, and you get a soft water. Okay. So this is it from the hydrogen. This is from the hydrogen and its compounds. This is the easy part. The most important part is the water, the soft and the hard water, and most of the question comes from this part only. So you should focus on this. Also, I would like to suggest you that you do read your NCERTs. After completing these questions and these lectures, do read your NCERTs for hydrogen and its compounds, because there might be few small points wherein a question can be asked out of 1 in 100. So there is a very least minimum possibility, but there is a possibility. So you should read your NCERTs. I've covered most of the points, but there might be 1 or 2 points that might be left. Okay, so do read your NCERTs after this. Okay, so for today, this is it. We'll meet you next time. Thank you for listening.